President Trump touting his tariff policy in a Wall Street Journal op-ed, writing in part, countless so-called experts predicted confidently that the Trump tariffs would crash stock markets, crush economic growth, cause massive inflation, destroy American exports, and trigger a worldwide recession. 9 months later, the results are in. Every one of those predictions has proven completely and totally wrong. For more, let's bring in Director of the National Economic Council, Kevin Hassett. Thank you so much for being with us this morning, Kevin. Appreciate it always.
Of course.
So I want to start here. We had a couple Fox polls this week I just touched on with Senator Kennedy, but another one for you. You know, voters are saying they want the president to focus more on the economy. 68% say he's not spending enough time on it. 43% say that they've been hurt by the president's economic policies. And we've seen the White House a lot lately highlighting all their efforts to bring down inflation and bring wages up, including the president's speeches this past week in Iowa, the Trump Accounts event last week. Why do you think people aren't feeling this right now?
Well, I think that, as Senator Kennedy said, that there's still a lot of things that can happen that'll improve people's lives because such a deep hole was dug by the Biden administration. But we are firing on all cylinders here at the Trump White House. I think that the Trump's op-ed that you just talked about really laid out the case, the very, very strong case for what we've been doing. And don't forget that when we were here in the spring of last year, everybody was saying that we're going to cause a global recession and so on. And President Trump just went really into the mouth of the beast. He went to Davos and he said, hey, not only is the U.S. booming with our growth north of 5%, but you guys are booming too, because when the U.S. booms, the world booms. And so we are reordering the world order, and it's going to end up being great for everybody. Now, in terms of what you can expect in the months ahead, that we are absolutely focused like a laser beam, here on Sundays, getting ready for the President's State of the Union address, where he's going to lay out a housing agenda, an affordability agenda, and so on. But the bottom line is that there are great, great things coming next year. All of the big, beautiful bill refunds are going to start coming into people's pockets, and we expect that will move these polls.
Okay. Last time we talked on this program, you were maybe still in the running for Fed chair. The president said since then he could not afford to lose you at the White House. It was a pretty big compliment to you. He settled on Kevin Warsh. He said he did not ask Warsh to commit to lowering interest rates, but it's very clear what he wants Warsh to do. But Warsh does have this hawkish history. He pushed for higher rates during the 2008 housing crisis. Lately, he's been more dovish. He thinks that this AI boom is disinflationary. But do you see Warsh ever getting behind the president's call for 1% interest rates? The rate futures remain priced for just 2 quarter-point cuts in 2026, and it didn't really move measurably after the announcement came out.
Right. Well, the bottom line is that Kevin Warsh is the right person at the right time, and he's a very independent, data-driven person. The president believes that if you are data-driven and not partisan, he thinks the Fed has been partisan, that rates could be a lot lower, and I think that Warsh agrees with that, and I agree with that. Like, you might forget that Kevin and I are old friends. We have offices, or used to have offices, right next to each other at Stanford, and I've talked about these things for a long, long time. I have high confidence that he'll go in there and he'll accomplish the right goals. Now, if the data change a lot, if all of a sudden inflation is higher, then of course there won't be room for interest rates to go as low as 1%. But President Trump thinks that we're having a positive supply shock right now, and that's lowering prices and raising growth and raising the welfare of American citizens. And against that backdrop, the number one affordability problem that Americans have is high mortgage rates, high rents that came about because of the huge increase in interest rates that happened after Joe Biden and Jay Powell let interest rates get out of control.
So since you know Warsh very well, you're the right person to ask about the possibility of major Fed reforms. In December, the Fed stopped shrinking its balance sheet and started buying Treasury bills again, about 20 to 40 billion a month. They say it's not quantitative easing, but I digress. Kevin Warsh, longtime critic of the Fed's active use of its balance sheet. Reuters wrote this week, though, that the balance sheet's pretty much now tangled up with interest rates and global dollar liquidity, meaning that you could only maybe shrink it so far. Is that kind of where we are right now? Are we locked into permanent bond buying, basically?
No, I think that if the Fed does its job well and I expect that under Kevin Warsh it would, that the Fed stops being the thing that everybody's talking about every day and worrying about what are they doing, buying this, buying that. The fact is that the Fed should focus on its job, which is financial stability and lower interest rates and low unemployment rate, low inflation, and it should try to basically do that the old-fashioned way, quietly. And the thing that I think that President Trump and the rest of us in the White House have been most stunned by is that, first of all, there's this huge building debacle over there at the Fed, and the Fed hasn't really been forthcoming showing us, well, where'd you spend the money on? And they let inflation get out of control and cut rates right ahead of the election. All these things are things that are way out of the norm of Federal Reserve policy. I think that, Senator Tillis has said that, we should drop the investigation. Well, of course, what we need to do is find out the truth from the Fed about what's been going on. If the Fed wants things to move quickly, then they can reveal the information that the Justice Department has asked for.
So right now, do you think the Fed should still be buying bonds at all?
I think that there's time right now for the Fed to focus on, obviously it depends on what they do with interest rates, but for the Fed to focus on getting the balance sheet as lean as possible. When quantitative easing came in during the big financial crisis, I think you're too young, Jackie, but I wrote a letter that we sent to the Fed that was top-fold Wall Street Journal describing why quantitative easing would be a big, big mistake for the Fed, and I think we're still living through the aftermath of that big mistake.
All right. We will continue to watch it. Kevin Hassett, always great talking to you. Thank you so much for your time. Appreciate it.
Hey everyone, I'm Emily Campagno. Catch me and my co-hosts Harris Faulkner and Kaylee McEnany on Outnumbered every weekday at 12 p.m. Eastern, or set your DVR. Also, don't forget to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page for daily highlights.